Hi, I'm Gabe from Unsolicited Designs, and welcome to Report Cards for Wilds of Eldraine. I'll be reviewing every mythic rare card from the set and giving them each a letter grade for how mythic I believe the design is. The score is based on the power of the card, how unique and exciting the design is, the thematic cohesion of the card, and the range of deck building options it opens up. This video is part 4, where I'll be completing my review of every mythic rare from the set. I hope I'll earn a like and subscribe from you by the end of the video, and without further ado, let's get on to the review. It isn't easy being the first to do something. That's why today, the first card we're reviewing is Virtue of Courage. For 2 red and 3 generic, you get an enchantment that says, whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play those cards this turn. It also includes Embereth Blaze, an instant adventure for 1 red and 1 generic that says, Embereth Blaze deals 2 damage to any target. It's funny to me that the Blaze half of this card, at Mythic, isn't as strong as Stomp, at Rare. But the enchantment half of this card has a lot to offer. Namely, chain reacting into a cascade of cards. Making burn strategies viable is a very difficult task, but Virtue of Courage is a keystone of a design that can prop that playstyle up all on its own. And while infinite combos are not my thing, it isn't hard to imagine some simple interactions where courage can churn through your library. This design includes a few nice touches, like how there's a May on the trigger, meaning you can ease off the throttle when you need to. And while I generally prefer being able to access exiled cards until the end of my next turn, tracking that volume of cards and the analysis paralysis that goes with it would be obscene. This is an incredibly explosive but balanced design. It's only held back by its lackluster adventure half. Even still, I think the designers bravely pushed the envelope, so I'm going to give Virtue of Courage an A. What do you know? Next up is Virtue of Knowledge. For 1 blue and 4 generic, you get an enchantment that says, if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. It also includes Vantress Visions, an instant adventure for 1 blue and 1 generic that says, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Informed players will recognize the start of a pattern here. The designs of each virtue are a relatively expensive enchantment with a powerful effect, plus a cheap instant or sorcery adventure that complements it. Here we have Panharmonicon with an adventure that gives you the option to duplicate a single ability before you commit the enchantment to the board. This gives you early game interaction and late game power. There's no questioning that this is a powerful and desirable effect, and I'm a big fan of the design philosophy behind the Virtue cycle. But as with the rise in token doublers, we are starting to see more ability doubling effects as well, which lessens some of the luster of this design. Despite being an excellent card, it is largely just a reprint, and of a rare at that, so I can only score Virtue of Knowledge as high as a B. The merging of effects faithfully continues with Virtue of Loyalty. For 2 white and 3 generic, you get an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Untap those creatures. It also includes Ardenvale Fealty, an instant adventure for 1 white and 1 generic. Create a 2/2 white knight creature token with Vigilance. Now there are numerous sources to make 2/2 knights with Vigilance, but to do so at instant speed and for only 2 mana is only available on 1 other card, and it's uncommon. But again, the enchantment half of this card is really where the heart of the design is, and that half is a rare. Okay, I'll focus on the positive aspects of this design. Both halves of this card pair terrifically together. You get to make the knight token early and instantly. Then the virtue comes down later and can grow the token turn after turn. And when compared to Broker's Ascendancy, this card does go 1 step further. In exchange for adding loyalty to your planeswalkers, instead it untaps all of your creatures. While that may not add much value to your knight token, every non-vigilant creature you have can now attack as though they did have vigilance. Better yet, any creature you control that needs to tap to activate its ability gets to untap and activate an additional time. The only thing that could be better are vigilant creatures with tap abilities. But let's not get carried away. Your ever-growing creatures will apply mounting pressure on your opponents while acting as an impenetrable barrier at the same time. Again, I can't give higher marks because this continues the trend of pairing old but good effects which complement each other nicely, so I'll just have to stand by my grade of a B. Next up is the characteristic needed to continue discussing this cycle. Virtue of Persistence costs 2 black and 5 generic mana. You get an enchantment that says, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It also includes Locthwain Scorn, a sorcery adventure for 1 black and 1 generic that says, target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn, you gain 2 life. Again, we have a pairing of reused cards, but this type of effect is absolutely mythic. While Virtue of Persistence is certainly familiar, it's nice to have duplicates of the same effect. And reanimating a creature every turn, from anyone's graveyard, is excellent. It makes any removal you play that much more potent, and can let you trade off resources aggressively. I also like that it can lend itself to other strategies like mill and discard, letting you be a little more creative with your supporting cards. I'm not as keen on the adventure portion of this card, but it definitely plays its part well. It's certainly reminiscent of removal spells we've seen before, and while sorcery speed does hurt it, it provides early interaction and a little bit of life gain to help bridge the gap until you can get the enchantment half online. The same criticisms I have of the other Virtue cards applies here, but I do have to credit the designers and how they persisted with their goals for this cycle. Grade B. And our final Virtue and Mythic of the set is Virtue of Strength. For 2 green and 5 generic, you get an enchantment that says, if you tap a basic land for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. It also includes Garenbrig Growth, a sorcery adventure for 1 green that says, return target creature or land card from your graveyard to your hand. Tripling is not text you see very often, although again, we have seen both of these effects before. I love that this specifies basic lands. I think that's why this card triples your mana instead of just doubling it. Also, the restriction allows creativity for future design space. Notably, this is the only Virtue with an adventure that costs 1 mana. All other 4 have mana costs of 2. Growth doesn't particularly mesh with the enchantment half as well as the other cards in the cycle do, but the alternatives I'm imagining are ramp spells of some variation, and I think this card is better off not treading that ground. I imagine a lot of players are turned off by the basic land only clause, and while it does significantly reduce the power level of this card, I do think it was an excellent design choice. Cards that impact your deck construction decisions are important and reward creative thinking. And I think Magic is a better game when it forces players to make compromises. Virtue of Strength will reward you for doing so. Grade B. And there you have it, our final 5 mythics from Wilds of Eldraine. Are my grades virtuous, or are they not very vice? Let me know what you think. I hope I earned a like and subscribe from you, and I'd love it if you'd share this video. If not, thanks for listening this long anyways. You can follow me on X at UnsolicitedMTG for channel updates, like when my next batch of grades are fresh out of the oven. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Gabe from Unsolicited Designs, and who asked me anyways?